Good day, everyone. Welcome, and today we have another keyboard review. We have here today the amazing Fancytech Fancy Alice 66 keyboard. This is a stacked acrylic keyboard with an Alice or Arisu layout. As usual, I will be giving you first my conclusion and final thoughts on the keyboard. And for those who want to dig in further, I will give you also a quick build and modding guide for this keyboard. Alright? Final thoughts and conclusion. The Fancy Alice 66 is a very good keyboard, especially for those wanting to explore the Alice Arisu layout. I've only begun exploring the Arisu Alice layout this month. It took me a while to dive into the layout. Although aesthetically, I think it looks really sexy. I fear that I might not be able to utilize this as much, and I fear that it would be difficult transitioning into the layout. The good thing is, I've trained myself when I started this vlog. I've trained myself to use 10 fingers in typing. Before, I only used 3 to 6 fingers, and now I'm able to maximize most of my fingers when typing. And I think that made the transition from the regular keyboard layout to the Alice layout very easy for me. This is a good keyboard. It doesn't have a daughter board, but it's gasket mounted. It allows for a good amount of bounce. Not the bounciest, not the softest typing feel, but it's very decent. It's just okay for my personal taste. You don't want your keyboards to be too bouncy as well, nor too stiff. This one sits right in the middle, so it's bouncy. There's a good room for bounce. The typing experience is soft, and I love the sound profile. I love the sound profile of the keyboard. I've tried in several switches with this keyboard, and it's really nice. Another thing that I like about the keyboard is, again, the build experience, which is a little bit easier compared to the other acrylic keyboards that I've built, because they ship this out of the box pre-assembled with the paper stickers on it. So you just have to remove the screws and assemble it again. But because it's pre-assembled, you would know where things go. You would know how things should look like and should fit in. So it's not a beginner's build, but it's also not as hard as the MW75 build. So as you can see here, you have the feet, which is very easy to figure out. It wouldn't give you any hard time. I didn't do any modifications aside from putting in the tape mod, one layer, to make the sound a little bit more poppy, as plastic keyboards would tend to be on the muted side. However, what's good about this keyboard is, even though it's acrylic, even though it's supposed to be deep and muted, I find that the sound signature tends to be a little bit more on the poppy higher pitch sound spectrum, which as of the moment I'm really liking. Other things that I like going on for this keyboard would be the south facing PCB, which makes it perfect for guys like me who love cherry profile keycaps, and that it is VIA compatible. So being that it's VIA compatible, it's very easy to reprogram the keys or reprogram the lighting. This keyboard has per key RGB, and it also has down-firing RGB if that's the thing you're looking for. Being that, again, going back, that it's VIA compatible makes life very easy, especially for Mac users like me who like to reprogram my keys. Alright, so what I don't like about this keyboard will probably be the fact that there's only one B key. I've tried the Owlab springs. It has 2 Bs, makes the transitioning better or easier for guys like me who from time to time is used to using my right hand for the B button. but it's not a deal breaker. I was able to train myself to use my left hand for the B in typing, so yeah. So that's my only quirk about this keyboard. Otherwise, I think it's a very good entry level for those who want to explore the Alice layout. It's good. It's really good. If you're not ready to dive into the more expensive aluminum case Alice keyboards, you could try out the Fancy Alice 66. I have no complaints whatsoever. It's a good keyboard. How does it compare to the Owlab Spring? A lot of the viewers are asking me that question since you've seen me post a sound test of the Owlab Springs a few days ago. I got this keyboard as a personal keyboard collection, meaning it's not sent in over for review or anything. It's one of my endgame collection keyboards. Comparing the Fancy Alice 66 to the Owlab Spring would really be unfair. This keyboard costs 2 to 3 times as much as the Fancy Alice 66. This is an all aluminum keyboard. This is an acrylic keyboard. It wouldn't be fair. They would have a very different sound signature. So the Owlab Spring would be poppy, marbly, and aluminum-ish, okay, sounding, while the Fancy Alice would be the expected sound profile of a plastic acrylic keyboard. The Owlab Spring has a different typing feel because it has that per key flex cuts in the PCB. This one does have flex cut in the plate, but the PCB is solid, which I think really affects the typing feel. So yeah, it's really far. It's a very different experience, the Owlab Springs versus the Fancy Alice 66. However, if we're talking about value, for the price that you're paying, I would have to say that this keyboard is really good. Because you don't expect this keyboard to sound and feel like the Owlab Spring, because that would be impossible. However, for the price you're paying, it's really good. It has a very good sound profile, a smooth and soft typing feel, and it has most of what you're looking for in a keyboard for that price range. Comes with the palm plate, gasket mounted, RGBs. I think it's really good. What would be a direct competitor to the Fancy Alice 66 would be your Akko ACR Pro Alice keyboard. Although personally I have not tried that keyboard specifically, I do, however, have reviewed the ACR Pro 75, and according to my friends in the YouTube community, the Alice ACR Pro would have a very similar typing feel and typing sound with the ACR Pro 75. So how does this compare with that? I think the ACR Pro 75 would be a better value keyboard just because it has everything that you need. It has good keycaps, good switches, and good stabilizers. This one, when you get the bare bones unit, it's really bare bones. So when you get in the switches, the keycaps, and the stabilizers, depending on which components you would select, the price could really go up. So there you have it. The ACR Pro Alice keyboard from Akko might be the better value keyboard, as long as you don't mind it being north facing and it is not VIA compatible. However, again, like what I said with the ACR Pro 75, I'm really not digging the aesthetics of that keyboard. So at the end of the day, between the ACR Pro 75 or the ACR Pro Alice from Akko versus the Fancy Alice 66, which will I choose? I would have to choose the Fancy Alice 66. Why? Because I like the aesthetics more, because it has south-facing PCB, and because it is VIA compatible. This doesn't mean that the Akko version is not good. Both are really good. You just have to choose what you value more between the two keyboard and be happy with your choice. Alright, so that's my review of the Fancy Alice 66 from Fancytech. I hope you guys find it useful. Please do like and subscribe to the channel. There are a lot of viewers that are not yet subscribed. I have a lot more keyboard and switch review coming up, so I hope you do watch out for them. Alright, for those of you who want to see how I built this keyboard and a lot more sound tests at the end of the video, please continue watching. So for the quick specifications, this is the Fancytech Fancy Alice 66. Got it from fancytech.ph on Shopee. If you get it on the bare bones kit, it will cost you around 4,999 pesos. Here is a quick spec. It is a gasket mounted keyboard with a palm plate material. One of my favorite materials for plates. It's very flexible and it has that poppy sound signature. Included with it is also a Poron plate foam, which is of good and high quality, a PE PCB foam. But when I opened up the kit, the PCB foam kind of felt more like the EVA PCB foam, the one where they used in the Hope 75 keyboard. It didn't feel like the usual PE foam like the ones you find in the Mr. Suit or the Owlab Spring. But that's a good thing because the overall sound signature of this keyboard is really good for my personal taste. They have the frosted white variant, the white transparent variant, the transparent variant, and get this, there's an iridescent variant which I think looks really cool. They just released this recently. I think it looks really nice. You have an option to get this bare bones without any switch, no stabilizers. It's as bare bones could get. Or you have the option to get it with the KTT Red Wine switches. These are linear switches and it will bump up the price to up to 5,700 pesos. Mine came in with the KTT Red Wine switches, and mind you, they are very good. If you're not familiar with the linear switches options out there, which can be very daunting, I do suggest just getting them with the KTT Red Wine switches. They are good switches for beginners out there. You just have to lube them up, and the sound and the feel of these switches are good. And again, it's a stock acrylic keyboard, which is not my favorite keyboard to build. I have had the experience building the MW75, which gave me a lot of headache. The good news with this one is that the build experience is a lot better because the feet composed only of 3 pieces, unlike the MW75, and they ship this in the box already pre-assembled. You just have to remove the paper thingamajigs, and then but you'd have an idea on how everything fits together. So it's really not that hard to build. So after removing all the contents from the box, the first thing that you work on would be the PCB if you're going to use your PCB mounted stabilizers, which I highly suggest you do. For this one, I'm using the Akko screw-in stabilizers. They're okay, needs a little bit of work, especially on balancing the wires for some of the wires that they provide you with. Next up is removing the top screw so that you can reassemble the acrylic pieces after removing individually the paper stickers, which I really do not understand why you have to have those in there. It's a pain to remove. My fingers are ouchy from removing these stickers. But after that, it's really straightforward. You put in the gaskets and then assemble everything into place. The PE foam, the plate foam, and finally, you put in your switches. So it's not the easiest keyboard to build, but it's basically a lot easier compared to the first stock acrylic keyboard that I built.